worked on data. That's good. All right. So I know a few people in whom I know in the organization are working on data, but apart from that, people who are new. So a couple of things that are here in the industry, which is more in terms of, you have to really understand your data very well before you even start working with that. So there are a couple of user personas. So most important user persona is of a data analyst. So if you have to be a very good data analyst, you need to really understand what's going on in the organization with the data. If you're working with the clients, what kind of data you're going to work with, why that data is very important for your business, for the business or the stakeholders business. What are the key performance indicators that comprise to, that comply to that business. If you're talking about sales, it will be more in terms of, the sale that comes in, the order that are placed, the product information, how the performance is, the sales performance across various regions. So these are quite a few things that you need to really understand. So understanding your data becomes very crucial at the very beginning of your project, at the very beginning of any activities that you do in data. So also be it if you're working on SQL databases, you really need to understand what kind of data is being brought in, because a lot of times what happens is you have a stakeholder, they want to bring everything into the system, everything is getting captured. You might have SAP as a product where people start feeding in data. One of the articles that I was reading recently was more in terms of SAP, where people say it is it is very fast in terms of processing, but it actually had increased a lot of dependency on the users, where they have to actually capture data. But there are two particular angles to this. Like, use earlier people used to get everything on email, and from the email people used to work on the data. But with SAP, everything you can get it segregated. You can create a platform where people can start feeding it. So that eats up users' time as well if they don't have knowledge about it. But for people who are working in data, that is very important that the right information is being processed. So these are the things that is very crucial when a company or organization goes to a digital transformational change. The second thing is where a lot of companies are using legacy data platforms, or a lot of companies I know they're still heavily relying on Excel as a source, or they're getting working on Excel. Where is this data coming in from? Data is coming in from SAP. It might be coming from SFTC. Any on-premises platforms where they cannot actually do analytics on top of it. That, or even Google data. No? So you have to export data from Google, and then you maintain Excel spreadsheets. And then on top of Excel spreadsheets, you basically go and create your you can go and create your own reports. But these are all Excel reports, and they are quite independent. And this is the point where you have, imagine a manufacturing company, or which has a lot of IoT systems, multi global facility where they're sitting in different regions. Now what happens in this industries is everybody tries to work across in silos. So region will procure their own system, and they will start capturing their own data. So eventually data gets lot fragmented. So here one of the most important things is, once the data is fragmented, it is really very difficult for you guys to have a centralized layer, having like, coming on top of it that combines everything. And that is one of the needs in the industry, where you have a lot of cloud solutions that are coming in. So you have Databricks, you have Snowflake, you have Microsoft Fabric. So these technologies are present. You can also do Azure Data Lake, like Synapse and everything, which can easily bring data, and you can create data lakes. So the whole idea about bringing data together unified is the concept of data lake, and then you have these platforms which help you do that faster. Now, with the world changing, you also are looking at people demanding more in terms of AI. Like, I'm pretty sure that everybody of us have used ChatGPT, and we try to get answers, be it from writing an email, or be it you want to create you want to just uh, like put your data in, and you want to just ask questions on the data, and that becomes very easy for you to really go and understand how easily things can be retrieved, because you really don't want to sit and code anything, because a lot of people here might not have that heavy background on coding. People like me who really I like coding, but I also don't like coding, because coding might it makes your job easier in automations, but you have to sit and code every time. That becomes a little challenging for you because you if you're a data analyst, your more time has to go in understanding what the data is, what you need to process. And then the next step is you can learn coding where you need to understand what the concepts are. So within Fabric Databricks, it sits on PySpark. But also it is very important for you to understand SQL. So when you have to read your data, SQL is another language that you need to really understand very well. Be it from writing standard queries, standard subqueries, joining data. So these are the things that are very important for you to understand how you can query your data in a simple language. So, without any start, I'll quickly show. So, to achieve all this, so eventually the journey of Microsoft, if you look at Microsoft already has Excel, which is still prominent in in every organization. You guys are not going to, for any smaller things, you still, feel that Excel, we still think, we know that Excel is the base. You will go to Excel, you'll put your data in, and then you will do, basic lookups, basic formulas in Excel itself. So Excel as Microsoft, journey on the data, if I put it that way, back in 2007, 8, during that time, Excel was the dominant feature. Then databases were there, but it was very heavy for people to understand how to work on databases. So SQL was there, and then followed with that, you had this entire MSBI platform. So where you had SQL Server, then you had SSIS integration services for ETL, where you were able to extract data, transform and load data in. So it was the ETL process. Then you had SSRS, SQL Server Reporting Services for reporting on top of it, which more in terms of you were able to create basic automated reports, which were more tabular in nature and few graphs were there. And then you had SSAS, Analysis Services, which was more in terms of hypercubes, where you are able to create the facts and dimensions. Now this whole set of data from data ingestion to reporting falls under one important bucket of where how you are going to create your facts and dimension or how are you going to model your data. So within the data industry, it's very important for you to also understand how you're going to model the data. Now there are a couple of principles that are really present in the market. So what you need to really understand is what kind of data model you want to create. So in our case, uh, when we look at the star schema, which is more in terms of you have a central fact and you have dimensions that are revolving around it. So for people who don't know what a fact table is, a fact is nothing but a transaction table. So any of your transactions that you do, that is called a fact table. And dimension table is info the dimension table is more in terms of information like people names, region names, and facts are more in terms of order number, like that. So any transaction that happens is a fact, and anything supporting that revolves around it is more in terms of dimensions. So technically when we look at the schemas, this falls under the Kimball data model principles. So most important technique here when we are doing a Kimball methodology is you need to understand what are the uh, what are the confirmed dimensions that you have, or what are basically how, because these dimensions will help you kind of retain your original data. It will also help you overwrite your original data. It will help you to drill down specifically in when you're doing cross connections or cross referencing your data. So these are very important techniques that you need to understand. So I would like you to also go through the Kimball modeling. So it's called Kimball dimensional modeling. It's nothing but a data warehousing approach for BI. So your entire Power BI generally sits on star schema, which is nothing but a Kimball dimensional modeling. So that's one. Secondly, for now, eventually after around 2013, 14, there was a whole need because SQL Server databases were there, and on top of it, there was really a need of a reporting system from Microsoft. So I'm only going to talk about Microsoft here. I'm not going to talk about Slack, Tableau, and Click per se. Microsoft launched Microsoft Power BI. Now, when Microsoft Power BI launched in, first 2, 3 years was very difficult because it was very basic. very, very basic. It still had a lot of good capabilities like ask a question about your data. This was all present. Uh, you were able to, get insights. So the whole intent of Power BI was more in terms of how you can make your data more insightful. What more can you do? But at that time, really, there was not too much going on happening with data in countries like India. You had United States and Europe, who were specifically handling having the data. But in India, there was a lot of data challenges. So actually, the data transformation in India happened really very well post COVID because there people really started the need of doing data, and then like Power BI also became stronger around 2018, 2019, and then during COVID it really picked up where people like you have looked at Power BI, you have started your careers during that journey, like around 2017, 2018, you started your journey. So that was the right time to pick up Power BI because it was evolving in the market. And then you can do a lot of things with AI in terms of report you can do. Now you have Copilot in that you can create your dashboards, apps, you can do mobile apps. A lot of people always wanted, reports to be easily accessed on mobile. So there are very smaller challenges that Microsoft had looked at and tried to fix it and make it available for people for free. So eventually, by the time Power BI became stronger and data was coming in, there was also a need for a platform wherein you wanted to bring everything together and control everything at once. And that was the need. That was one of the things where if you had looked at the Microsoft journey in terms of Microsoft Office. So first thing my Power BI what happened was you had Power BI and everything as a part of your Office 365. So from MS Office went to Office 365. So Microsoft started bringing everything under one roof. So they brought in all these tools in terms of licensing, everything started coming in together. And now the thing was more in terms of data. Now they also wanted to bring every data and everything under one roof. You govern. You had Azure Synapse coming in during that time. So Synapse was there. So now all of these pieces are sitting in silos. It has to be managed by data engineering teams. And this all things has to come together, which can be easily controlled or managed. And there were solutions in the market, like Databricks was there. Databricks came in, and then you had Snowflake in the market. And this all products were nothing but platform as a service. They were all platform, but they were using Microsoft resources. Like you have Databricks where you can work on AWS and Microsoft both. So you can still it's a product that stitches things together by using Azure resources or AWS resources. So then Microsoft eventually came up with their own product, which is Microsoft Fabric, which is also a product as a platform as a service. So where you can unify your data together. Now, the way Microsoft has positioned it, because they first got a lot of users into Power BI, and now they would want these users to really start using Fabric. Now, couple of things in terms of uh, Power BI. I'm not sure how many of you guys have attended FabCon or have looked at FabCon by Arun Ulal, who is the VP of Microsoft in this area. He had mentioned that Microsoft has 300K plus customers on on the Power BI platform. Well, I'm talking about customers. And they have around, at present, 2025, they have around 19,000 plus customers already into Fabric. So since Fabric is really picking up, I wanted to, and I want you guys to also start looking at Microsoft Fabric from one perspective, how easy it is and how you can unify your data. So I'll take pause here just, and you can put any of the questions that you have in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer that in the next 5 minutes. Or if not, then we can really start about looking at Microsoft Fabric. 5 minutes. Yes, Rohit, that's a good question. So API data, yes, API data Fabric supports that APIs using notebooks. So you can do that. I'll share some links to get API data. You can also leverage, you can also create the AI agents from your data within Fabric, from your data if you want to push it outside as well. That's a very good question. Amit, when to use Synapse and Fabric? So, uh, so Synapse and Fabric, so Fabric also sits under data engineering in Synapse. I'll put it that way. So, the reason Fabric is being used is because Fabric, as compared to Synapse, uses the same services, same features, but it is less expensive. The problem with Synapse was Synapse using Synapse warehouses is very expensive, and it sits on a specific set of units DUs. So that is where you have this concept. When you're doing the SKU pricing, you can have your SQL Server dedicated pool, and the dedicated pool sits on the unit DU unit. I'll show you that, and that's where it becomes it becomes very cost expensive. So obviously, queries using dedicated SQL Server pool in Synapse is very, but within Fabric Data Warehouse also does the same job. So Shruti,
So,
yes,
yeah, sorry, Prathamesh.
please go on.
So, in addition to this, while comparing Synapse and Fabric,
Mhm.
so my initial understanding was that the Synapse should be used only when you have to perform some of the machine learning projects. Okay, so that is more capable of doing this. So, was my understanding correct on that? Uh,
See, partially yes and partial no. Because see, the thing with Synapse is yes, it's really very fast. It's really very, very fast as compared to standard data warehouse in Fabric. When you're doing machine learning, yes, you need to get data pretty much faster. But within Synapse, you have to set up so this is a AI/ML case that you're talking about.
yeah,
So yes, so for AI/ML, if you're using uh, earlier methodology was Synapse because it was super fast in kind of looking at bringing data in because Synapse has a data warehouse. So within data warehouse, it becomes very fast. But within Fabric, because you have the concept of delta lakes. So delta lakes makes it's really a fast it's really a very fast area where you can also data is stored in delta Parquet formats. That's why companies are now and you can write notebooks, and within Synapse also you can write notebooks, but this is more in terms of AML. uh, Fabric, the whole intent about Fabric is you can bring structured, unstructured, all that kind of data and bring and load into Fabric and use it. So the whole idea about Fabric is where you can work with both structured data and unstructured data. Whereas Synapse is specifically meant for handling a lot of structured data and a lot faster.
yeah. Thank you for.
Yeah. And you have Synapse. So see the way Fabric is designed, you have data flows in Synapse, but you also have Power Query. Now the thing here is uh, Synapse data flows are different to what we have as compared to Power Query or Dataflows Gen2. So these two are two different topics, two different areas. Dataflows Gen2 are nothing but Power Query, which is more of a very straightforward GUI that you can use. So that's why where people are already on Power BI, it becomes easy for them to transition. Synapse is purely data engineering.
So, to conclude, means whatever was possible at the Synapse level, so the same things we can do in the Microsoft Fabric, as one of the component in Fabric is also the means data factory, fabric data factory.
Correct,
So
correct.
the
So
data engineering can be done with those, and isn't it?
yes, yes, but I would say, see, a lot of companies are still not completely moving into Synapse, from Synapse to Fabric. They're still trying it out because there are certain, I'll be very honest, there are a lot of limitations as of now, which Microsoft is trying to resolve.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had worked across a few projects where we found that, to be very honest, Synapse at this stage is still powerful as compared to what Microsoft Fabric is. But Microsoft is coming there. So it will take at least, I will this year to settle things, what's there in Synapse to completely, moved in Fabric. So like UDF, they have user data functions and everything that they have introduced now. You have variable environments. One of the things that you work on data factory. You can when you so when you're working on data factory, you can still leverage logic apps on top of data factory to trigger a change of data. But within Fabric, you can't directly use logic apps for triggering that change. So these are very smaller things, but are very, very important when it comes down to very big organizations, which who have a lot of set policies, who have a lot of well-defined practices in the organization. So it becomes challenging for them to adopt Fabric as well. But that doesn't mean that they are not coming down to Fabric. At right now, a lot of organizations are exploring the heavy organizations who are already into a very stronger, data area. They're exploring how Fabric can be beneficial.
Yeah, Prathamesh. Yeah. Uh, because I do have that question because I'm working for the proposals for the clients coming in. Okay,
Hmm.
so so the organization I'm working in. So
Hmm.
there is always a confusion that the customer sometime wants because they only heard the name like Synapse and Fabric, but in detailing they also don't know much about it. So
Correct.
while they come up with the questions like when to go for the Synapse and Fabric. Okay,
Hmm.
so that was the means major questions actually we wanted to answer. So that is why actually I wanted to ask this query to you.
Hmm. No, that's a very, very, very good question, and that is where we also get these questions, specifically in terms of Synapse versus Fabric, Databricks versus Fabric. So see, Synapse is like PaaS. It's more traditional that where you have large scale data warehousing, you want to do real time analytics. That is where a lot of things uh play a very massive difference. If you're working with an organization who has very huge data, very large data, and they want to do complex analytics, that is where Synapse generally is preferred. Looking at integration of data, where you want to do reporting everything under one single roof, that's where Fabric comes into play. Microsoft will always push you to go to Fabric because within Fabric you can still connect and have your SQL or dedicated pool in Synapse. That will also be heavy. So Fabric becomes a more easy user interface, user friendly, integrated, cost effective solutions. But if you want to look at large data set handling, complex AI, that's where Synapse becomes powerful.
Yeah, thank you for that, Prathamesh.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
great. So now, yes, and I'll drop a link to Kimball methodology. So Kimball group is there. Uh, Send that link in. So go through that. And the other thing that I also wanted to tell you guys is, you should also look at, the open group framework, for you guys to start learning about the architecture. Because as a part of your career, that is very, very helpful for you to understand how a business analyst architecture is. So it's called TOGAF. So I'll also drop in a link to the TOGAF for you. There's a certification of TOGAF that you can do. But I would recommend that you should also understand architecture, how the open group, like how the architecture really is for your BI, what are the user personas that you want to drive in. Because the whole intent about you to understand about BI is, how the processes works. So it is TOGAF is nothing but it really helps you to like design, implement, managing data and how they're stored. You can access it, you can transform it. It also helps you to understand like how you can do the ETL in data modeling, data warehousing, data quality. What like it also helps you understand what is the vision and strategy of the BI. So I would recommend you to also look at that. Yeah. All right. So let's start looking at Fabric. So for everyone, I'm going to start sharing my screen now. It's already 40 minutes into this. Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, it is.
Yep. So for learning on Fabric, you have the Microsoft Fabric learning path, which has around 10 modules. So introduction to Microsoft Fabric, you have getting started with Lakehouses, how to use Apache Spark, working with Delta tables, data movements, ingestion, and then followed by real-time data science and administration. So anybody wants to start learning Fabric, I would recommend, you to go through this path. You will also have a path on Udemy, which basically works in the similar lines. So, but Microsoft Learning Path is really helpful because in every path that you have a lab exercise. So if I go to exercise, you have a launch exercise, and this will help you do a step-by-step process in terms of how you want to create Lakehouse, what you want to upload the files, and so on. So you can write queries. So every path that you have, you can create a you can you every module will have an exercise. So when you're doing Fabric, so there are two levels in Fabric. So one, you have the Fabric DP 600, wherein you need to have the concepts of Microsoft Power BI both, and you have DP 700 where you have to understand only it's only Fabric oriented, but it is heavy on the data engineering side. So these are the two examinations that I would recommend you to look at if you want to, start off with your career. Now, what is Microsoft Fabric? So as I was mentioning that, Microsoft Fabric has a very important area where, you can unify your platform. So a lot of organizations are moving across to, they want to be Microsoft shops. So when I say Microsoft shop means I'm using Microsoft Office 365, using Microsoft services. So that's where Microsoft is pitching those customers who are already on Microsoft technologies. They're using SQL Server on premises, or they're using Azure SQL Server databases on cloud. So for these customers, Microsoft is trying to bring them into a unified solution via Microsoft Fabric. I'm just trying to look for my Microsoft Fabric intro. PT. This is just a short story about me. So, I was talking about Microsoft Fabric introduction. So, it is a end-to-end unified data platform where you can unify your data. You can integrate your data science. You can do data engineering. You can use analytics, and you can do BI on top of Fabric. Fabric really is built for scalability. Now, with things changing in with AI coming in, Fabric is really built for scalability on AI as well. Now, you have another area of AI Foundry. Now, if you're using your data within Microsoft Fabric, you can also push that data to create external agents. So I'm also looking at AI Foundry. We are also trying to work across certain POCs, proof of concepts, from using AI Foundry and then read your data. And so it's a single SaaS solution. It will support your diverse, like different workloads. So you have data engineering, data agents, and multiple workloads in that. Now, key features of Microsoft Fabric is where you have, it's role-based specific workloads. So you have different workloads. So you have data factory. as one workload. You have data science as another workload. You have Power BI as a BI workload. You have real-time intelligence or data activators as real-time workloads. You have Fabric SQL databases as one of the workloads. So these are different workloads, and you can customize your needs. So a lot of customers who are already sitting on Power BI, and if they don't want to do data engineering, but Microsoft still pushes them to go to Fabric, they can still use Fabric with a lower cost. So that's not a problem. You can still do that. The whole Fabric ecosystem sits on one lake, which is nothing but unified data. So it's a unified area where it simplifies your data, helps you to access. Just sorry. So you can leverage everything under Fabric when it is data lakehouse warehouses. Everything sits under one lake, and then you can easily cross share. There is also a concept of data mesh, which I will show it to you guys. What data mesh is and how you can share data from one user to another user as well. Then you have AI-driven features like you have Copilot sitting in Microsoft Fabric with Power BI that you can use, leverage, and do your automation task. Integration with tools, you can easily integrate Fabric with Microsoft Office 365. And then you have Azure AI Foundry, which is advanced machine learning and advanced AI to deploy models. And you have Microsoft Purview, where you can say, you have a centralized data discovery that can help you govern your data and do data cataloging and so on. So these are the all key features sitting under one single area. So that's where a lot of companies will start inquiring about, why Microsoft Fabric is beneficial. Now, components of Microsoft Fabric, as I mentioned, let me just minimize my screen here. You have Data Factory for data ingestion transformation. You have, Synapse for Lakehouse data analytics. You have Power BI for advanced visualization reporting. You have real-time analytics, real-time intelligence for streaming data processing, especially for manufacturing companies. You have one lake, which is your unified data, and you have AI/ML Copilot for data-driven insights, and you have Perfume sitting on top of it. Now, within Fabric, you also have partner and industry workloads. They are nothing but solutions that you can easily, these are pre-built solutions by Microsoft, which you can go and import, and you have the reports, KPIs, the lakehouses, warehouses, tables created on top of it as well. So you can also go and have a look at that. I'll show you where all these things sit. Now, use cases, specifically a lot of benefits that comes with Microsoft Fabric is where you have your where you are going to do predictive analytics, data-driven decision making, enterprises. That is where you'll be very beneficial for people who are students or who are getting in very new into this area. You will have a hands-on experience with this leading data platform, which is new in the market and it's evolving. So it is the right time for you guys to start looking at it. For developers who are already working on SQL or who are on PySpark, who understand a little bit concepts of Python, this is a very good tool for you to try your hands upon. For business users, generally, this is for the people who really want to use like Copilot or Power BI reporting without less knowledge of coding. Fabric also helps you do that. And from the if you want to really understand about administration of these tenants, so that is where we do at the cost. Like Amit, you did speak about the cost. That's where cost saving is really very important. So how Microsoft Fabric works? So this is one of the very smallest areas that I wanted to showcase about. Like this is how a generic typical Microsoft Fabric architecture sits on. So you have data sources, you can bring in, to file data from files, you can look at SQL databases, you can do any kind custom applications that you want to bring in. You can also do APIs. Orchestrations, you can do a Dataflows Gen2. These are like other components in Data Factory. You can do data pipelines to bring data in. I'll showcase the data pipelines today. Uh, how you can bring data, how you can upload data, and how you can create your data models on top of it. Then you can use PySpark notebooks, Spark notebooks to write like customize your code and make your if you have knowledge in PySpark, so that would be very efficient. Fabric sits on one lake, as I mentioned, in form of lake houses and warehouses. So this is a concept of medallion architecture, where you have the bronze, silver, and gold. So this is a topic when you talk with a lot of customers or when you talk with a lot of data engineers, you will be hearing a lot. So bronze is nothing but your landing zone. So where every data lands in. Now When you say data landing in, so I am having one source, maybe a Excel file. I want to bring this data into Microsoft Fabric. So I will always ensure that I need to first level, I need to have a raw copy. So as this copy of the existing source. So because if anything happens tomorrow, I should be able to trace that. Is my what's coming in from source to Fabric is really working or not? Then I have a silver layer, which is the base layer where you can basically start transforming that data. So transformation here would be, it starts with basic transformations like renaming of columns, or cleaning up your data like handling nulls and so on. If you want to create any intermediate tables, you want to join particular tables, you can do that within silver layer. And the gold is the most fine. It's a curated layer, as we have the name in the industry, where it is much more data is ready for reporting. And now this, when you when you work on Fabric, it automatically creates a SQL endpoint for you, which you can also go ahead and, using your SQL server, like Azure Data Studio, you can go and connect to that server, a Lakehouse, and then you can start querying over it. That's where you need to have knowledge about SQL as well. And you can also create semantic models directly in the Fabric now, on which you can leverage Power BI reports. Now to support all of these things, you can also have, Azure keywords where you can store your credentials, pass your credentials for APIs. That is really important. You have Azure DevOps where you can Azure DevOps and Fabric integration. So where you can do a deployment pipeline, which where you can save your source code. So one of the very important things is how to do source control in Fabric. So that's where DevOps Circuit really helps. And for Power BI, you have tabular editor. So this is the middle architecture. So landing, base and curated. So bronze, silver, and gold. So one-to-one with source native format. Columnar sources is Parquet. When the data comes into Fabric, it stores into Fabric into Parquet format. You can store duplicate copies. There is no schema. It's like schema. There's no schema validation on this because it's a landing zone, and you can store a full history of the files. Base layer is more cleansed, deduplicated, quality enforced. You can do error handling. You can rename the attributes like columns. You can handle null values. You can do SCD2. There you can set up primary keys and so on if you're looking at warehouses. Curated is more of aggregated, consolidated data structured in facts and dimension, ready for consumption. So Fabric as compared to other solutions. This is one of the very important things that maybe if you want to understand where Fabric is good, where Fabric is not good. So this is where I've broken that into four different parts. So where you have easy to understand pricing, analytical work performance, and ETL work performance. So I'll go into very high level of this. So pricing is very simple in Fabric. Uh, when it comes down to again bursting or scalability, that is where you need to understand the real cost needs of the customer. But pricing wise, Fabric is pretty much simple. And now with the SKU estimator that is available in Fabric, it is pretty straightforward that you can go and estimate what are you going to do and how uh, you can what capacity is required for the organization. Yes, as compared to that, Databricks is a little complex in terms of pricing because you have the Databricks units. So where depending upon the compute you're using, is simply it's easy to understand, but it is not customer friendly. So it is a very big topic when it comes to database pricing as well. Snowflake, it is credit pricing based, demand wise compute. Microsoft Fabric also has a pay as you go, which becomes expensive in a way if you're trying to use that. Then compute pricing, this is very important within Microsoft Fabric where you are going to pay for the compute. So all these technologies, Fabric, Databricks, and Snowflake, this all technologies sit on compute pricing. So the more batch cycles you run, the more data you start processing, the more compute it picks uses, and that's where you have this need for bursting or scalability of the particular resource within Fabric. And compute will always pay for what you are going to compute. So that's there. Analytical work performance, I would say here Databricks is very good. Uh, Fabric performance is okay if you're starting off small. So one of the key important things when we do Azure assessments as well, we always have there is a velocity approach. So because Fabric is new, you need to always start small and then expand. So you'll always first look at a smaller area, try to understand how it performs, and then try to scale up. Whereas The Databricks, Snowflake, they are already they are established solutions. Databricks is very dominant and prominent in this industry. Uh, and because it has evolved over a period of years, this has a very good performance as compared to Fabric because it has independent resources as well. Now, there will always be a question from the customers that, okay, you are a Fabric guy or, you are telling about Databricks. Databricks is better. Yes, Databricks at present is better. Fabric is coming there. That doesn't mean Fabric is behind. If you compare the cost, then Databricks is expensive. So if you are then and if you want to do Databricks, we can also do Synapse. So that's where I'll always have a uh, performance. Yes, when you look at analytical load performance, one really thing about Snowflake is it is better than both. So Snowflake is really good when it comes down to handling SQL performance, and it also does a lot of benchmarking as well. So that's one of the important things. Again, this is very hidden, and it's again, I've seen that, and I've seen Snowflake performing, to be honest, better than Databricks and Fabric as well. And then you have the ETL. ETL workload performance in Fabric is okay, I would say. It is really very important for you to understand when you're dealing with heavy data. Fabric, I've seen challenges in Fabric where my data transformations or pipelines takes a little bit of more time to initiate because it's a cloud-based platform. It takes a little bit. It takes a while to start off the sessions, or if you're, and then it's also a thing where you're using when the user concurrency is there. So if you have multiple users, that's one of the areas where it will work better. But if you are having a shared user, which generally typically happens in a lot of organization that you have users and you have admin user and that credentials are being shared. And that is the point where on the same user concurrency is there, then the ETL takes a hit. But if you're having multiple users, that is the point where performance is okay. Databricks on the other end is very, very helpful, very big, better. That is what I would say. Snowflake is solid performance in terms of that. So, other area. So I'm going to share this table with you guys. So this is all the end-to-end Microsoft training materials that you have. 9+ hours of training practical guide. This is all I've collated. Then you have, best practices, how you can do things in Microsoft Fabric and meta-driven orchestration, how if you want to create meta-driven orchestration. So I'll not go into these topics in detail today because these are very heavy topics to work across. And that's on the Microsoft Fabric intro. Any questions on this, guys? Share the PPT, Urvashi with everyone.
So Prathamesh, one query, please. As we learned that we have to prepare means some of the layers like bronze, silver, and gold. Okay. So basically, the bronze will be the copy and paste from the data source. Okay. We are not going to transform any data within that bronze. But my
Correct.
question is like that. While converting this bronze layer to silver layer, okay, so we will be using the notebooks here, okay, and in this notebook we can use SQL or PySpark for the transformation. So is this understanding correct?
Partially correct, I would say. So, see, pipelines, notebooks, these are ingestion, transformation, workloads or items. Okay. So you can also use a Dataflow Gen2 to transform notebooks. You can, which is a Power Query. Pipelines and notebooks are used because if a person has an understanding on PySpark, then it is faster. Obviously, if I compare Dataflows Gen2 with PySpark, PySpark is obviously faster. That is where everybody thinks that if you want to learn Fabric, you need to know PySpark. It makes your life easier, to be honest, but it also that doesn't mean that you just have to use PySpark in that for notebooks.
Okay, but parallelly, can we use that SQL in the notebook itself? Because we do have the options to write the scripts
Yeah, you
by
can, you
SQL.
can, you can. So PySpark, Spark SQL, you can use in a notebook. Obviously, you can use that.
So it is not the case that we have to use only notebooks. Instead of that, we can
Correct,
use the Dataflow Gen2 as well. Okay, so
correct.
that is the choice we can.
You have a choice, correct. See, these are all workloads within Fabric. Now you have workloads. So it is really on the user. So see what happens is when you're using lakehouses. So lakehouses store data in Parquet format, right? Now to read this Parquet format, PySpark is used. And to process the data, obviously Python is comparatively a lot faster. But that really doesn't mean that you have to only use PySpark for that. If I'm a Power BI user and I'm heavily using Power BI, I can also use Dataflows Gen2 to bring my data in and push the data from one source to other, transform the data and put it there. But my Dataflows Gen2 obviously will consume a lot of compute because it's a GUI based, whereas PySpark is more code based. So that's the area where people prefer using PySpark over uh, Dataflows Gen2. But I've worked with a lot of customers who are on heavy capacities. They prefer using Dataflows Gen2 because their users don't want to go to PySpark.
Yeah, it might be the case because Dataflow means it's kind of Power Query editor, means online Power
Exactly,
Query editor. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I see. I'm a user. I don't need to learn PySpark. My whole intent is what to transform data. Now, if as an organization I have the capacity to procure a system and I'm paying for that system, then I would prefer using Dataflows Gen2. I don't want to do PySpark in that. PySpark will only come if you're looking at better efficiency. A lot of things in PySpark that can easily be handled. You got the point?
Yeah, Prathamesh. Yeah, because if someone is the Power BI developer and if he knows the Power Query editor, M codes like that, so it will be easier for him to means do the transformation with the help of Dataflow Gen2. Is that
Correct.
what you mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Correct. Correct. Correct.
yeah.
See,
Thank you.
what happens in the organizations is now this when you talk about a technology, we are going to bring in X technology. The data engineers or users are like, "Arey, yaar, I need to now go and learn this new technology." अभी इसके अंदर in here the thing is now lot of these elements like PySpark करना पड़ेगा. You have to do AI on top of it, Azure machine learning. So people already get scared. Now in the organization you'll always have a set of people who are open to learn. But the whole intent is how good are you at doing a data analysis. So Microsoft doesn't recommend you to do PySpark. Like PySpark ही करना है. नहीं तो फिर why would have they got in data flows? Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So the whole intent is making it easier. And what happens is when you compare performance of execution, data flows Gen2 versus notebooks, yes, notebooks are a lot faster. When you're dealing with huge data, if you're thinking in terms of organization which is dealing with large data sets, obviously they will do PySpark there because the data processing is a lot faster using pipelines. But if I'm an organization who is only relying on BI, I'm having my source, I just want to bring data from that source and just do basic transformations. I can do data flow Gen2 and I can still manage that within the same compute. Fabric may once you purchase a capacity and a reservation, you can scale up, scale down after 6 months. Scaling up is okay. Scaling down is at least you need to have 6 months to sit in the capacity before you decide what you want to do with that. So there are two areas in Fabric where one is where you have the pay as you go, and second is where you have a fixed reservation. So fixed reservation is where you are saying 40%, 41 or 42% of your savings, direct savings. So standard pricing, if I say F64 in INR is 8 lakhs, if I go to reservation, I'll pay around 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs or 4 lakhs for it. So that's the important thing. So now one of the thing is how you are going to uh choose your Fabric capacity. So let me see if I can pick up the Fabric SKU Estimator. Share my screen again. So here this is the Microsoft pricing page. I'm going to put this link on the chat as well. Again, maybe Amit, this will be helpful for you as well. So how are you going to choose your capacity? What are you really going to do when you want to work on Microsoft Fabric? This is the point where you will be able to understand how my Microsoft, what is my capacity. Now, tenant capacity is where, Fabric sits on the capacity unit based ecosystem, which will help you understand what is the thing that I want to do. And then Microsoft will recommend which is the best capacity for you to go along. So I would say, if I'm looking at data, I've also done a video on SKU Estimator. I'll share that video link with you guys as well. So where I've explained each and every topic of this, in a PPT format as well. So I'll say, okay, what kind of data I would need. So the most important thing when you work with data is what is the size of data that you want to bring into this ecosystem. So I say I have around 1 TB of data. Generally, it is always like 400-500 GB of data that generally people try to bring in first and then try to scale up. So I'll say I have 1 TB of data. Now batch cycles are here, that how often you will run the data processing. Now there's a funny story here. I had a customer who wanted to procure Microsoft Fabric, but he was running data independently. So he had around 1,000 batch cycles. Now I'll tell you what batch cycles are. So if you're bringing one table in one data flow or one table in one pipeline, that is one batch cycle. I can bring in one or I can bring in 100. So batch cycle is where what are how what are you going to do end to end. Now this funny story is where the customer they were on Power BI, they were trying to explore Fabric, but they were doing one table for one data flow per table. So they had around 1,000 data flows, which was really a very bad practice. And when they said we are doing 1,000 batch cycles, and you were like 1,000 batch cycles, don't you think that uh, it is, because this topic here, if you are load schedules for individual table, consider the single batch tables. So they thought that they thought that you have to, when you're doing data flows into a pipelines, you can just bring in one thing at a time. So you can bring in one or you can bring in 100. So that is a batch cycle. So typically in organization, there are 5 to 10 batch cycles that are there to process data. Because one batch cycle, one pipeline will be, you can do multiple sources, connect to sources and bring data in. And how many tables you want to bring in? So this is the area where you want to say how many number of tables you have in the organization. I say I have around 200 tables. Now, the important part here is what are you going to do within Fabric once you start? What is the workload that you want to use? Now here you have data factory, Spark jobs, data warehouse, Adobe SQL Analytics, and data science. Now, data factory, when you select data factory, you will have a pop-up here, which is Dataflows Gen2 operations. This is the area where it starts playing on with your capacity pricing. Now I can also do Spark jobs. So Spark jobs doesn't cost you anything. So if you look at this, Spark jobs will automatically get added to the estimated. But when you're running a data pipeline, you will also have a data pipeline and Dataflows Gen2 and workflows. So data factory will help you understand that how many hours are you going to spend on a daily basis on an average to run your data flow. Obviously that you're not going to run the data flow for 24 hours. You will have a pipeline and anything that is executing maybe for in the night for 3-4 hours and then during the day for 3-4 hours. So if I say, for example, I have 5 hours for my data flow Gen2 operations, I'm saying I just need 5 hours max. Then data warehouse. So typically when you're looking at a Fabric Medallion architecture, typically you can have all lakehouses as well, or you can have a lakehouse warehouse, because in the warehouse it is easy for you to do SQL queries. So there's a very good article I'll share with you guys. What is the difference between a lakehouse and what is the difference between a warehouse, and when to choose a lakehouse versus when to choose a warehouse. So I'll come to that topic when I show you the Fabric dev, when we start working on Fabric as well. So typically your gold layer is always a warehouse. Now Microsoft has also introduced SQL databases in Fabric. If you want to bring your data into SQL database right at the ingestion, you can also do a SQL database. Now this SQL database is similar to your standard SQL database that you have in Azure. So a lot of times what happens is customers have a question in terms of, I want to bring this data, but I really don't understand what is a warehouse, what is a database, and what is, a data lake. So that is where the Fabric article will definitely help you. And I would recommend you to actually go and read about, this concept, because this is the very basic area for you to understand what works and what doesn't work. So I can quickly just show you Lakehouse versus warehouse and Fabric. There is Microsoft Learn Architect. Yeah. So here you have a proper comparison. When are you going to use Lakehouse? When are you going to use a warehouse as well? So I'll put this in the chat for you guys. So that's one. Now coming back to our topic. So let me go to the pricing. Yeah. So then ad hoc SQL analytics, this is the area where how many users are going to actually query the data. So ad hoc SQL analytics is nothing but the users. This is the number of users who are going to sit and query your databases. It could be data engineers. You want to create views and so on. So you can basically go and connect to a data source and start querying on it. So this is where, your compute power starts increasing. Then you have data science. Now, when you do data science, again, here you can do a lot of data ML logs. So if you go to this document, here you will have a link to the document which will open up and it will tell you what is the data science process, data wrangler, and all those things, how we're going to use it. So I would recommend to start going through that as well. So this is where it will say how many users I want to, data scientists are going to use, how many model training jobs, like data models I'm going to use every day. Then I have Power BI. So when I select Power BI, what is the number of Power BI report users, how many people are going to create report, what is going to be your average model size that you're going to use, and Power BI embedded, whether you want to embed your report into a third-party external application who are going to use that. Now, then you have the event house and activator. Event stream is nothing where you are going to bring the real-time data in. So real-time data is more in terms of what is the size of data that you're going to ingest. Data coming in from sensors, you have, event log data, Azure event log. What is the stream? What is the destinations that you're putting in? And to store all of the stream data, you need to have an event house. So event house and event is much more in terms of delimiting. One of the key important things is when you're working with real-time data, you need to really understand what is the kind of how much time you want to store the data in. Because it's real time. I don't want to keep like 2-3 months of data. Real time is like what is happening today. Production mein, what is my production thing today? I would say today or yesterday. 2 days of data I can keep. So I can keep my data into the cache retention, and hot data days is more in terms of what is the data that I want to put uh, in the hot cache, which is really used, and then retention data, how many days I want to keep the data for. And then you have the duty cycle, that how much hours it is going to run for, similar to when you do the data factory. So obviously real-time data, I would say, if I'm bringing in data from if it's going to connect, I would say it is just going to run 1 hour max, because it's just pinging the data and bringing in a real-time data. I'm not going to say it is going to bring in a whole lot of data, because this is much more sensor-based data that comes in. You have the data activator. This is more in terms of real-time events and what are the alerting rules. Now, data activator is a very fascinating topic. I'm going to have another session because I'm also exploring this area, uh, wherein you can do real-time alerting. You can also use Microsoft Fabric, Power Apps together, Power Automate, I would put it that way, to trigger a flow by sending emails or sending data to people, by sending alerts. And then you have SQL databases. So SQL databases is very another topic here, where what is the core and the things that you can use. Now, one of the things here is, if I uncheck everything, okay, and when I'm going to look at data warehouse, now here there is one topic called, where there's one section which is called use migrate to Fabric experience. This is where you have the SQL Synapse dedicated SQL. So Amit, to ask to have your question that you asked initially as well. Why, when to choose Synapse and when to choose Fabric. I can also use Synapse within Fabric. I can still use a SQL or dedicated pool with the DUs that I have in Synapse. And instead of that, I can use a data warehouse, which is a Synapse-based data warehouse.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So this is where customers, Microsoft is saying, you want to do Synapse, okay, do it. Do it in Fabric. Come down to Fabric and do Synapse from here. Why do you have to maintain a separate resource there? इसी में से बिलिंग में हैंडल कर लेते हैं. मतलब Synapse DU will be built separately outside Fabric, but it will be a part of your CU. It's part of your Fabric capacity, but it will be built separately. So costing will be outside Fabric of this. Okay. Now I come back to this. I say I have data factory. I want to do Spark jobs. I want to do a warehouse. I don't want to use Synapse. I want to have SQL. I don't want to do data science as of now. I want to do Power BI. No need of embedded. No need of anything of this. I'm a standard Power BI reporting company. Now I'll say data factory. I just want to use for 3 hours a day. I have like 10 data engineers as a team, and I have 100 reports, and I have like 20 developers, and I don't know the model size. The moment I go and click on calculate, it'll tell me the important thing that you need is F32, because I'm going to use a lot of operations in my data factory. Now, if you look at this, I'm having data warehouse, I'm having data factory, I'm having a lot of users, Spark jobs I'm going to use. I'm going to use Power BI, and so this is my standard uh, SKU that I'll use. I go to data science and I say I have 10 data scientists and I'm going to do at least 5 jobs a day. I go and sit and run calculate. I get a F64 because now I'm using data science on top of it. Obviously, 1 TB of data I'm talking about. If I change the data size to 500 GB on an average, and if I just go and calculate this, I'll still have the same SKU, because here my size really doesn't matter a lot, because by the will compute will tell you what is the fabric capacity that will be there. When you start increasing your compute in fabric, that is where your SKUs will start increasing. So if I just remove data science, I just say I just don't need data factory. I just want to, as you said, I just want to do PySpark, right? I don't want to do data factory, and I can just do a calculate here. I will say, okay, 20 data scientists, 10 data scientists, and model jobs is 5. And I do calculate here. So it's still almost the same, because that really doesn't matter. So if I just, so this is how you can start playing around with this. So this is very helpful for you to understand when you discuss with the teams, or you can also think from yourself that, okay, I want to do Microsoft Fabric. How should I go about? What is the SKU that I would be requiring? This is on the Fabric capacities. So any questions that you guys have?
So, Prathamesh, as you mentioned earlier, so if one of the client only wants to use the Power BI capability within the this Fabric, so if you will
Mhm.
click on the Power BI part only, and the customer is already having the perfect data model, which is
Hmm.
clearly required for reporting purpose. So that
Hmm.
is also feasible, no,
Yes,
to
it
do
is.
this.
It is. Yep, it is. So I would say I'm having like, see, typically Power BI users, when you bring data in Fabric, you will have around 200, 300 GB of data. Okay. I'll say I just have, so for example, I just have 500 GB of data, and I have 100 tables around that I'm bringing in. And batch cycles are like 2 to 3 batch cycles. Okay. I just do a data factory, or I just want to do Power BI. Okay. And I say I just want to have like viewers are like 100, and report creators are 10. I don't know the model size. And now if I go and click on calculate, so it gives me a fit, lowest possible SKU. I can change this to 1 TB of data also, and increase the batch cycles to 5. And if I do calculate, so it's F16. So, and now if I go to the actual Azure pricing, so here here is the actual thing when you are trying to, do a saving instance versus so if I just go and do INR for the in this case, and if I look at, if I'm looking at India, Central India, mm, for example, my F16 is nothing but I'm paying almost just 1 lakh per month. But when you looked at Power BI premium capacities, you're spending like $3,000-4,000. So it was around 3-4,000, like 3 to 4 lakhs that you're spending. So capacities in Fabric becomes again really very cheap. So if you look at this, you're actually paying 2 lakhs, but with 41, when you go to reservation, you're paying for 40% less of that.
Okay, so the number of users we entered here is 10 Power BI developers, isn't it?
100, 100.
100.
We had 100 users who are going to consume. Na? I just need 10
Oh,
developer licenses.
and that will be by default the premium users or the pro
Premium,
users?
pro users. Pro
Pro
users.
users.
Hey, if you see licenses Power BI Pro 110. 100 users plus 10 developers.
Okay,
110.
got it.
So now, anybody has any other questions? We'll take like a 5 minutes break and we regroup at what is 10:30, 3 o'clock. Then we'll start looking at Microsoft Fabric. We'll create lakehouses. We'll start ingesting data in, and then on top of that, we'll do Power BI, and then we'll do data agents. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop in. Yeah, I'll just be back in 5. But till now, just put in. Let me know. Till this time, what we have discussed. Did you find it helpful or did you find it boring? How was that? Hi guys, I'm back. Right, so now let's start looking at Microsoft Fabric, how things are and how it looks like. And I'll start off with a lot of different contents. So that let me know if you can see my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Okay, cool. So when you're into Microsoft Fabric, okay, so there are two elements here. So when you look, this is a Microsoft Power BI home. So if you're on Power BI, if you only want to use Power BI, then you can choose Power BI, or if you want to use Fabric, then you can use Fabric. So this is where you can have Fabric workspaces and everything. You can also have another link, app.fabric.microsoft.com, if you want to also access Microsoft Fabric. So this is specifically to Microsoft Fabric. So I'll go back for now. Once you're into this, you'll be able to look at a lot of options here. Now, the most important thing that when you're working in the organization, a lot of times people don't really understand the concept of meshing. Before you set up, before you set up Fabric, you need to really understand, how are you going to uh, keep your data within the organization safely and where. Okay. Now, to do that, in that, so admin, as an admin, you have something as a concept called the domain. So domains are nothing but where you can tag your data, or where you can move your data into different areas. So for example, I am an organization which is a global organization. So I'm placed across, United Kingdom, I'm placed across United States, and within the organization I have multiple departments. Now I can create multiple workspaces like this, and I don't know where to find what information, right? Now that this is the very important concept when it comes down to data mesh. So what data mesh helps you to do it, it helps you to use data as a product. That's the most core element. You can control your own, you can have your own space, and within that own space you can store your own data. And within this data, you would be able to then easily share that with other people, other users in the organization. Okay. So data domains are a very key, they play a very key role in the organization when you're trying to set up any kind of warehousing solution, any kind of solution in the organization. So for example, I have created these two domains, sales and finance. Now since we are in the demo, so I want to have a domain, I want to have a subgroup where I want to just keep in everything related to that specific domain only. So I'll go and create a domain which is the demo domain. Okay. I would say fabric demo only, fabric demos. And I can then put in my email address, who's the admin of this, and I can just go and create. The moment I create this Fabric demo domain, now what happens here is I can assign a contributor or a workspace to that particular domain. So I can go to a Fabric domain, and within Fabric demo, I want to do training day one. Create a subdomain within this, and within this subdomain, I can then go and assign workspaces. Now what it will do, is like, for example, if I go and assign a workspace, or I'll create first. Before that, we'll see how we can create a workspace. So I can go to workspaces and I can do a new workspace. And I can say this is my fabric training workspace. And I can describe this. This is this workspace for training. And here I can go and assign a domain. So if you look at this, I have a fabric. So I have 3 domains. Under this, I have all fabric demo or training day 1. So I will assign this to, for example, training day 1 domain under fabric demo. I click on apply. Now, once I click on apply, you see there's a new group here. So if I show you another workspace that I have here, capacity, it will show me it's a part of fabric content, because it's a license assigned to it. And I have this, but once I go to the fabric training here, I see there's another small icon here. This is a part of domain. So in this way, if I'm into my portal here, or if I go to a workspace, if I go to OneLake catalog, so OneLake is where everything gets stored. So I have all this reports, workspaces stored here. So I can go to a specific domain and I can then see where my domain is. Now, this is my user. Let me quickly assign this user to that domain, because that's where I don't see my domain here, because under the domains, I have not assigned a user to it. Like catalog here, and I refresh. It'll take a while. Okay, now I still don't see it. Now, typically, this is the reason I don't see it, because I have a workspace here. Okay, fabric training, but this is an empty workspace. There's nothing in it. What would a administrator have to do with this? Right? The moment I create any item in this, like for example, I'll go and create, I want to say I want to have a lake house. So typically when you're putting in creating workspaces in the organization, there are typical naming conventions that you need to create. So basically, always when you do the workspaces, so you have to give a naming convention. So I will put a WS for workspace and fabric underscore train. Okay. So I'm giving this a naming convention. I can also put it my department wise. So I have a training department. I put a department and then I put a demo. So this is another way of you can typically work on, creating your own naming conventions. Now, under this, you have the license information. Now, within the license configuration, you can go and assign a license. So I can go pro, premium capacity, embedded, fabric capacity, trial. So as of now, here we are on trial. I'll show you another license where I can, I'll show how you can assign a fabric capacity, what a fabric capacity is, like that. So if you're here, so I can go and select this license. I have this license selected and I change this and I click close. So I have this fabric training demo. Now here I'll create a lakehouse. So I'll do a lakehouse. So under store data, I have a lakehouse and I can give this lakehouse name. So LH for lakehouse underscore demo, or I would say lakehouse underscore bronze underscore demo. Now I can also create schemas within the lakehouse, and these schemas are nothing but if I want to further within the database or the lakehouse, I want to have data separated out into different sections. So I can create a schema here. I'll do create. Now, what happens is when you create a lakehouse, automatically within your workspace, it should be here. I'll have 2 things that is by default created with the Lakehouse. I have a SQL Analytics endpoint. This will help me query my data. Lakehouse is a place where I'll store files in, and this is where I have the semantic model, where by default semantic model is created within Microsoft Fabric. So this is the very first step. Now, when I go to the OneLake catalog, and if I see my Fabric training demo automatically available. Now, if I look at this, I have this Lakehouse here. So it is very essential for you when you're working in the organization to group this. So and what I can do is when I'm governing or giving access to domain admins and workspace contributors, they will only be able to see this Fabric demo. They'll not be able to see any other any other domains. So in that way, I can still control my data so that I don't have to give access, all the access to everyone. So within Fabric, all of this is controlled specifically on the workspaces. So what happens when you're doing the demo, when you're doing the domains, you can also add subdomains and you can also add admins and contributors to this. So here, this is one of the very important ways that I can, say who is going to maintain this entire area. So if it's a finance, I can have a finance admin. I can have, finance data champions who can go and maintain this area. And this is how you can create a proper data mesh architecture within Microsoft Fabric, which is very helpful for the organizations. Anybody has any questions on this? Sorry?
Fabric है.
Hmm.
So data capacities like created the domain.
Mhm.
The Fabric we can create a capacity like 50 and 105.
Yes, yes, you can. But
That
for
domain
that is managed. That is managed by your tenant admin.
Yeah.
So I'll show you quickly. I'll not purchase one, but I'll quickly show you to that. So here you have this Azure portal. So Fabric capacities has to be purchased from the Azure portal only. Okay. Now, as we also, I was going to come to that point on that different account that I had where I was going to show you the capacities. I'll show you that as well. So, so what happens is when you want to create a Fabric capacity, the SKU estimator that we looked at, right? The SKU estimator gave us a area where, okay, I want to have a F16 capacity. Now I can go to the portal within the, and this is admin level based. Now I can go into Fabric and I can go and create a Fabric capacity. So I'll come to Fabric and create Fabric capacity. Now here it will tell me which subscription group I am in. I can create a resource group. So I have a resource group that I've got training program. I can use this and I can provide this capacity name, Fabric capacity demo. And the region is very important to what region that you want to do that. So sorry, it's so but if you look at this, I cannot create a capacity with a name because in UK South, the same capacity is available. So I can just put in. Now, if you see, because this name is unique, so you have to create a unique capacity. Now, the region, when you're looking at this Azure pricing, which region you are based in, right? Here, based on the region, the pricing is eventually going to change. If I go to UK South, and I put this in GBP, where I'm located, and this is the cost that I have for F64, 4,000 pounds on this. So I go back to here, I'm in UK South. I can change the size here and I can select what capacity I want to bind. I'll say I just want a F2 capacity for now. I select. This is my administrator. Then I tag the resource. I'll say, okay, I want to create a tag here, create value, and then do a next review. This is the cost, and this is how it can assign a capacity. Now, once I create a capacity under the license, I would be able to then go ahead and assign that capacity. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me go to the another account that I have. Another account. This is my admin account. So here, if you see, I have a Fabric capacity that I have purchased. Same way. So if I go to my Fabric and you can see this is paused here. So I have this under a different resource, and what I'll do here is overview. If I look at this, this is F64 capacity that I have purchased. Now I can go and resume this capacity for my training purposes, just to show you guys. And this is my another account where I'll go and create a workspace. So I already had a workspace here, Fabric training. Now in this, if I look at the capacity here, if I go to license info, and see this is a trial one. So if you see this is a trial capacity. Now I can still create, initially I can still create a trial. And once my testing is complete and I have a capacity, I can go to the edit and I can go and select a fabric capacity and I can set a capacity here, East US, and I can select the license. Now in this way, here, if I go to the training, I'll say this is the fabric content, this is the I'm assigned to this capacity. So every time you'll be able to see where the capacity is linked.
So
And
automatically the workspace
Mhm.
will be moved to this capacity.
Correct.
And we can
Automatically
move.
it will be tagged in. Yes, it will be tagged in here. So one of the key things to remember here is capacities. When the moment you turn on the capacity, it will start charging you. So if you use AI, so there are multiple ways to do that. So for example, I'll pause this. I'll show you how the billing also looks like. So I'll show you a subscription billing here. So I can also go to the cost management and I can show you, but there was a direct article. Let, Give me 1 minute. Let me just search for that. I should have that written. This is incognito. That's why. Okay. Uh, Give me a minute. For now, I'm not able to find that, but what I'll do is I'll share that link as well. I'll show it to you then if I'm able to find that. But let's go back to our, yeah, because it gives you a breakup of where you're spending on AI, what is your tenant. So moment you turn on the tenant, you will always have uh, you'll always have the billing starting the compute with, and other thing is whether you use or you don't use it, it is still going to cost you. So this is very important when you are working on the fabric capacities. Yeah. So I'll not create a fabric capacity for now. That's fine. So I'll be working on trial and on the other account, will do the same things again. So here, when you're working on the capacities, okay, the most important thing that you need to really understand is how you want to bring in data. Now I have created this lakehouse, and what I want to do is from the lakehouse, I want to start with a basic file ingestion. So I can do a manual file ingestion. I can automatically convert that to tables. So for example, I go to the files, and within the files, I create a new subfolder, which is my demo for subfolder. And within this demo subfolder, I want to bring in some data. So there are a couple I'll show you two ways. I'll bring in a manual file and I'll create that to a table. Second is we'll use a pipeline to, ingest data and copy data from data warehouse, from a database. So I come to get data, I'll do upload file and I'll go to browse, I'll go to my system and go to my desktop demo. For example, I have this I have this sample project data. Let me select this and I click on upload. Now with Fabric has the capability to handle structured, unstructured data both. I can also upload a PDF here. It really doesn't matter because this is my storage area. When I want to do data science or anything like that, I can definitely go and use my PDF files as well. So that's where, you don't have to be very restricted towards it. I want to use only Fabric for bringing data from databases. I just don't want to bring data from, I don't want to use any PDFs, but Fabric, you can do anything. The files area here, you can bring in anything, provided you then use your notebooks to transform that data and, bring it to a more defined structure. I'm going to have separate sessions when we are going to deal with unstructured data. So that's another thing in my pipeline which I'm preparing. But for example, now I have this data here. I can just select this data and it will show me what data I have here. I can preview this data and check. Now I want to push this data to a table. Now I don't have to create any specific pipeline or anything like that. I can just select this data and do a load to tables. I create a new table. I select a schema where I want this in. Now what I can do here is, because I have a DBO here, as I said, Fabric where we can do schemas as well. I can create a new schema and I can say this is my demo schema. Now anything I want to push in, I can push on demo schema. Now I can select, come to load to tables, new table. I select DBO demo. I say project sales data here. I have the comma separated. I click on load. So it should practically go and load my data. The manual way of doing it. So my table is successfully created. I come to these tables, I refresh this, I come into demo, I see my project data is automatically created here. So this is the base where I would say you should start working on it. Data pipelines, all those things are later, but first you need to understand how you want to bring data into Fabric. I have got this data into Microsoft Fabric directly. Any questions on this? Looks simple. Now let me do one thing. Let's try to look at the second thing where we have in Microsoft Fabric, which is your pipelines. So let me close the pipeline and we now look at databases. Let me just try to show you how we can do a copy job. Let me see if we can do a copy job. So go into Fabric and then do a copy job. I say copy job one. I would say temp copy. So copy jobs are essential where if you want to move data from on-premises or Azure SQL directly into Fabric. This is similar to a concept of mirroring. So if I want to bring data from my SQL server, so let me see, I have a Azure SQL database. I select this and I have a database here in my tenant, which is this one, training program. I can go ahead and bring this data. So if I go to my properties, so this is my server name. I just come here, I put in the server name. I copy this database name program. Now here I will say what kind of connection I want to make. So I can create a new connection. For example, I can select a data gateway. I can use the organization and sign in. Try to see if I can connect to the data source. It takes a while. So by the time this connects, couple of things that, when you're working in Fabric, it is very important for you to understand all the workloads. What are you going to do with that? When to choose a pipeline, when to choose a data copy job, when to choose when you want to upload files. Now, if I look at this, it is not allowing me to do the IP. Okay. To specify a IP rule. Is this? Just give me a second. Let me check what is the IP. The gateway. What's going on with my data gateway? Just have to restart the gateway once. I like about demos that it really tries to screw up sometimes. It had a conflict on the gateway. Log into this. Check. Yes, it's connected. And to the SQL server. Give me just a minute to test it out. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions on Fabric? Give me a second. What's with this? Happened like this. General public access is enabled. Rules. I'm seeing some firewall rules on the data. Let me check. Selected networks. Okay. Set up a firewall rule on the account. That could be one of the reasons. So it might take 2 to 3 minutes to connect. Let me see. Sorry about that. What the issue was. So, sorry about that. So what I did was, so if you look at this data portal here in Azure, I had created certain firewall rules, and it was not allowing any other IP to access. And now I added my IPs here. So again, good. Another thing for you guys to learn on portal. So if you get this kind of errors, also you need to check what's going on. So we'll do a copy job here. I'll copy my Azure Lakehouse, Azure database. So I have this database here, and I will then use this database to data from this database. Now what I'll do is I'll come back again. Since this is resolved, it should be able to see connect properly. I'll do Azure SQL database, and I put in my database name. Come here, that's my connection, and I do next. Yep, so it got through. So I can either copy the whole database as is, okay, and I go to next. So this is a copy job that we are doing, okay, and I'll say Lakehouse, and within the Lakehouse, I'll put in because I'm copying an entire database. So there are a couple of things that I can do. So if I go back, I can go and copy the entire database as is, or I can select a table. So if I select a table and I go to a Lakehouse item, here I can put in my Lakehouse name. So copy jobs, what happens with copy jobs is whenever I'm doing a copy job, okay, here, if I'm into my workspace demo, a copy job will always copy this data to a lakehouse that is present. So I can have an independent lakehouses which will have data in this. So I come to the demo copy, select Azure SQL database, put in my credentials, the database here, copy the database name, connection is there, go to next. Select the tables that I want to. Go to next here. I select a destination. So I don't want to create a new fabric destination. I want to use my existing. So I can create a new fabric item. I can go to my one lake and I can say I have this lakehouse training. I select this lakehouse training. And now here I have two options. I can also store this into Delta Parquet tables, or I can also store it as direct tables. And if I want to append any new values to the table, I can also use the append method. So if I go to append method, I can do a overwrite or I can do append. So if a new data comes into your database, I use the append method. So anytime with the database tables are updated, automatically my data will get appended. I can do overwrite where I can overwrite everything. Now I go to next. I want to do a full copy or incremental copy. It's up to us, because if I do incremental copy, I'll have to then set up what is my source table and what is the columns that I want to increment data on. So I don't have, so for example, for every table, when you're doing an incremental copy, you need to understand, you need to have a key column or a date column where on basis of which it will increment the data. Okay. So again, I'll do a full copy as of now. I go to next. I have a source to destination, full copy, total number of date tables, and I can immediately start a transfer. I can schedule the transfer. Now, the moment I click on save and run, it will open up a full copy job here. It shows my source, it shows my destination, and here it will show all the tables that are being copied here. So this is one of the very key things when you are trying to work across with, data that you want to move in from one source to the destination. So instead of you doing a data factory or a notebook that will bring in data from a database, you can use a copy job to copy tables, and you can set up incrementally. This basically will avoid the coding practice that you want to code in and you want to explicitly do something on top of it. That is where you can use a copy job as well. So if you look at this, it will show me a couple of things here. It will show me the the source to destination, the status, the rows read, the rows return, duration, when it start, when it ends. I can also go and see if I want to see data read, data return, what is the throughput, run ID, it will give me everything in here. I can go and select whether it succeeded and so on. So if I select, so now if I go back to my data lake here, bronze lakehouse demo, lakehouse training that I had. Sorry, bronze lakehouse demo, I have copied it here. Go and do refresh. Was house training. So if I go to lakehouse training and here I go and refresh. So here I have got things in unidentified. It's where my copy job has created Parquet tables. And now these delta Parquet tables, I can then push it to tables as well. But we can just go and quickly look at what had happened here. It copied everything over. Now, the reason behind that was and this is all right. Go to advanced settings. It's okay. Now let me do one more thing. Let me create another copy job. Just to figure out why it did not copy things over as expected. Copy job 2. I think I did one mistake there, which I was expecting. So let me try to copy my data again. Should have copied over properly. So let me go back to my Lakehouse training. And it should have moved into the tables. But it eventually copied on the delta log. Okay, it copied all the logs and JSONs in here. Okay. All right. Now, yeah. So this is one way. This is one way you can do it. Let's see how we can move this to tables. So I'll come to this. Secondly, when you're doing a pipeline, so I'll come back to this workspace here, and we'll do another pipeline. Let's do a data pipeline. Similarly, for a copy job, I create a pipeline in this, and with the copy job, I can use the copy assistant. Here, I can go and choose a SQL database. I'll put in my connection. I'm here. I select next. I do a tables. I can also write a query if I want to. It. Select the tables that I want to. Tables, I go to next. The destination my lakehouse to let's training. And say load to new table. Or load to new tables. Because I don't have any existing tables in here. selected.
But means it should not be like it should not be
Mhm.
load at all tables at once, like we are going to do manually.
No, we can no, we can do that. I'm just loading because I'm just bringing everything to new tables. That's what I'm just saying. I don't want to, because I had existing table, then I can do existing table. By default, load to existing table is selected, but I'm loading everything to a new tables into a table section. So that's where I'm saying, okay, I want to move to a new table that I'm going to create, because I don't have any tables in my training lakehouse, right?
Yeah.
So I can go and run this pipeline. So within this pipeline, you see there's automatically a for each queued, for each created. So for each table, it will create a parameter and it will start run the pipeline.
So Prathamesh,
So queue.
automatically
Mhm.
these foreign activity get included during copying this activity.
Correct. So there are multiple ways. That's what I'm trying to see. When you're doing the activities, no, there are a lot of I'll show you another thing, because what Microsoft is doing is it is giving you a lot of help in terms of how you can minimize the process rather than writing a code on top of it.
Hmm. Yeah, because when we have to do this copy activities for multiple files or tables, so we need to manually get the for each activity while in data
Correct.
factory. Yeah.
Correct.
So
Correct. So here it will automatically create it for you. Now if you go and look at these tables, now let's look at this.
Prathamesh, I have one
Mhm.
question.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there is one option enables partition. Okay, so based
Hmm.
on partition key, it will create
Hmm.
multiple tables based on that key.
Multiple tables for you. Yes.
But in the backend also, like if this data is
Mhm.
coming from Azure SQL, right? So there is
Mhm.
also a partition, right? So how it's work? Like suppose there is a one table and using partition key in Azure SQL, there is 10 tables created, right? So you are
Right.
pulling that one table or those 10 tables using partition.
Yes. So this is a point where you can use a notebook to bring everything into one.
Okay.
Tech Technically, when see, Fabric becomes your landing zone. For within Fabric, if there are 10 tables, it will consider it 10 tables, not one, because you have written a query in Azure SQL, you are partitioning the tables. Those will still
Oh,
be 10 independent tables when you're bringing in Fabric. So Fabric will consider it as one table only.
okay. Got it.
Correct. So this is one of the things that you need to really look at when you're understanding the data. Now, since you got this in, now if I go back to my pipeline here, okay, I can go and check the JSON code also be behind this. What is this doing? So I don't have to explicitly go and create. Now I go and create a new pipeline, another pipeline. For example, just for you guys to show you guys, I do a data pipeline. I do a pipeline 3. Okay. Now, for example, you don't know what to do. Like you don't know how to do that. You have pre-built templates to bulk copy data from databases, copy data from ADLS Gen2, copy data from sample data from Lakehouse, and so on. So for example, if I just take copy data from sample Lakehouse, I can use this template. I can go to next. I can select the fabric training. I have this copy data activity. I use this template and automatically I can use my sample data and I can run this. So there are templates within Fabric pipeline also that you can go and test it out or try it out when you're creating pipelines. So one of the most important things here is that you need to really understand what you need to do. So that's where you have to look at when you're working on Microsoft. They give you a lot of templates that you want to look at. Like for example, I go to my other account as well here, and we create one more workspace. I have this Fabric training workspace. I do a new item demo and I do a notebook. Okay. Okay, because it gave me an error. I'm not able to create a capacity because create a notebook in this should be able to give me This current, okay, because this capacity is disabled. So what I have here is I've assigned this to a capacity, but I have paused this capacity. Now, if I'm into a capacity, I've assigned a capacity, and if it's paused, I can't do anything in this capacity because this capacity is not working. So I'll go to this capacity and I'll go and resume this capacity. So a couple of times what happens is during business hours, if you want to work, the admin can go and turn on, turn off the capacity without making any changes to it. So now I go and refresh this because the capacity is turned on. And if I go and create a new item, I go and create a notebook. I'll be able to create a notebook in here. Okay. And now because this capacity that I have is a F64 capacity, I can leverage Copilot on top of it to use to write anything, like to create a notebook. So I can say create a load data from load Excel file my local computer. Okay, I'll have to connect to a session. So let me see, connect new standard session. I start a session here. Session started. Now I do this. Now here I can use Copilot. So every time you don't have to really, so the whole intent what Microsoft is simplifying, where Microsoft is trying to simplify this process for you guys, for everyone, is they're trying to tell people that you really don't need to know full level of coding. You can basically try and go ahead and use Copilot within this. Now, so if you look at this, it has given me the full code. So I can copy this code and I can paste it here, and I can put in my path here, what I have. So for example, from the file path, I can provide the file path here. So I can go into my Lakehouse that I have here. And in this, I can upload a file. So again, file uploads are generally shortcuts and everything. Local files are pretty much nobody uses it, but I have this file path here. I can look at this path and I can copy this path. I come to the notebook and I use this file path here. And I then go and see if I run this. And then I can go and did this with the actual file path. So again, here we'll have to change the files path. Okay, I have to give the ABFS file path here. This path here. And then try to run this. I'll have to look at what the error is on this. SQL exception, try any. Okay, so this is where we have to look at the codes. But ideally, you can put in and you can use the data frames and define the path and create a file. So not getting into the coding because it will take us time to solve all these things. But you can leverage Copilot in Microsoft Fabric and notebooks as well. So that's one of the areas. If we go back to our session here that we were into this workspaces here. But till now, are you able to follow what we are trying to do here?
Yep.
Yes, Bhuvnesh.
So I go into this DBO and I have a couple of files here. Where is this demo? Is the right one we had here? Loaded the project sales data, and top of this, 1 second. load this. We loaded into a Fabric training. Load this into we loaded into this warehouse. Okay. Now what I want to do is now I have this data. Now I want to build a semantic model on top of this. Now if I go to my fact reseller fact table, fact sales here. So now I'm switching from Fabric to a little bit of Power BI. Now I have a fact reseller here, sales order I have. I have sales order, order date, product key, keys are there. Then I have a reseller here. This is my reseller key and all those things. So my facts and dimensions are linked. Okay. Now what I can do is I can go and create a semantic model on top of this. And I can create a Power BI report. Now I go and provide a new semantic model and I say, this is my reseller semantic model. I want to see which workspace I want to put this in. Here I can go and switch in whatever workspace that I have in the capacity that I can put in. Before doing that, let me this capacity. Yeah. And I come to these tables here and I'll say I want to have all these 5 tables in my data model. Go and click on confirm. Now you don't have to explicitly do Power BI on top of it. You can also create a semantic model and use a live connection in Power BI desktop. But what I'll do is I'll show you both ways. How you can use import from Power BI and how you can use direct mode. So now what we are trying to do is we are trying to look at direct mode in Power BI. Okay. Now here I can have the history and everything stored. So I have this data model here, which is, which is nothing is linked in here. I can go and so I have 2 modes, editing mode and viewing mode. So I can also open this in desktop mode and do the changes, or I can do the changes here as well. So I go to definitions and I go back and I set a new relationship. I say I am a fact reseller sales and my reseller. This is going to be linked to each other. So what it will try to do is see reseller key automatically joins in. Preview will not be available here. But I click on save. I can create another relationship. Fact reseller to employee. So I should be having an employee key here. Product. I'll have a product key that is joined in. One factory seller to reseller हो गया है sales territory joined in here as well. Go save. That is if I have a color formats. If it is in here, not sure. It's not there. So this is not the one. Okay. So I have these 4 relationships. Now, if I close this model here, I'll see my facts and dimensions are linked. So product is also linked. Let's see. Product link. So now on top of this, I can now go and create a measures or dimensions that I want. So I can create a new measure. So if I go back to my table here, and I can go and look at my reseller sales. I have a unit price, total product. I can create new measures. I will say sum of total products, sales amount. I can create these measures automatically. I come to measure and I create a sales model and I say sum of sales, reseller, sales amount. I can do, let me just close this pipelines for the time being. Copy jobs also. Do sales order line number. I can do count of sales order line number. Is here. So the problem is here. One challenge that I see when you do work on direct lake is you cannot move or you cannot create a new table, or you cannot go and move this measure that's created here into any other tables. So like in Power BI, when we can specifically go and use the existing layout. Like you can create a measure table and you can move everything. You can create display folders and everything. Here you do not have all these options. You can display folder here. I can say measures, and this will be moved into display folder, but I cannot go and change it to a different folder. So this is one drawback, but I can create this. I can go to fact, create a new measure as line item. So this was total order count is listing count blank. Go to the table here. Order line number, or I can just take the order number. I'll just go back to this. Create in the reseller sales. So Lakehouse training. Order number, I have it here. Now I come back to this. My model is ready, and I go back to file, and I can create a new report. Now, once I want to create a new report, what Power BI also will do is on the same data model, I can create a new model in this way. I can then go and create visualizations on top of it. I want to do a KPI card. I'll say, okay, I just want to get the total sales, and on the measures, I'll put in here. I get the total sales, and then I can go and get the total count, order count, and so on. I can do it this way. I can create all visualizations on top of it, whatever I want to. I want to have order count by order date. I can do it that way here as well. So in this way, I can go and create my report. So this is one way of doing it. Okay. Now what I want to show you guys is this is how you can bring data into Fabric, and you can create a report on top of it. And I can go and save this report. And I can say sales report. I can assign it to a task. If there is a task assigned, I'll just create and save it. And in this way, if I go and look at the Fabric training, my sales report is available. And this is directly connected to live to the data model. Now, this is one way of doing it. Second way of handling this is like if I go to my other account, let me turn on the capacity. I'll show you a quick, I'll just ingest a few files. We'll leverage Copilot here. So I come to my workspaces here, and under the Fabric training, I have the Lakehouse demo. I'll just load 3 files. So 3 direct files in under projects. I'll just delete these files, and I'll just upload because I don't have a database on this tenant. So I can just quickly go and upload files. So I have a sales customer sales fact, uploading this to upload here. Now I can create this table, load to tables, and can go and create this new table in sales fact. Okay, because it did not have a column name, skip this. It will load the data. There's a problem with the CSV file. Now, these are also key things that you need to look at when you are creating. Now, I'll tell you what is the problem here. Why is this a challenge? So, if I look at this sales fact, so here the table gets created, but it has no headers. It will always have column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be the challenges that you will face when you deal with data coming in from flat files. So let's give it a minute to load the data in. So if you see sales ID, customer number, product number. Now the problem with this is when you're bringing data in, one thing that Fabric or when you're loading data from files to delta tables that it doesn't like is it doesn't like the spaces in the data. So I go back to this demo file. Okay. I take this data sales fact. We just create a new folder here. Copy this from this to this new file. I'll just create a new file from this. What I'll do is I'll just take this date, transpose, and just for this exercise, I'll remove blank with this book here. I'll just keep this here. I'll just save this file. Close this. I'll do it for the rest of the files as well. Should have for the products as well. If this is here, so yeah, but I have the product name, category, unit. This is all good. This is good. Let's look at the customer dimension also. Customer name. And so it will take you by underscore, but it will not take spaces in. Get the sales track updated. Let's see what is in this. Yeah, I have that. So what I'll do now is let's delete this. We don't need this table anymore. We go sales fact. I don't need this. And I'll upload a new file. Just complete it. And just do a sales fact here. Updated one. This is also okay. Now, because this is all an underscore, I can now go and create my tables. Do this. It will now create the tables because it has. So this is one of the key things that you need to understand when you're working with data. I got the product customer table, product table. So we have this product dimension, sales fact, and the customer dimension table. Now on top of this, we'll create a semantic model. I'll go back same, come back to semantic model. I can just put in a sales semantic model here under this DBO and table. I'll say give me all these three tables from this confirm.
Prathamesh, we cannot create a calculated columns there, no, as we have created.
Semantic models, yes. When you're working with direct select, you cannot create calculated columns. So that is one of the other challenges when you do in Fabric as well. You can create a calculation group, but not a calculated columns. So in a way, because you're working on Fabric, right? I can go and create a calculated column within my query itself. I can go to the Lakehouse. Why do I need to create a calculated column in Power BI semantic model? I can create a calculated column here itself, right? I can use a notebook and I can update a code, alter the table and create a new column here.
Yeah. That is
Yeah,
doable. Yeah.
correct. So that particularly makes sense when I'm trying to create, right? Because see, traditionally our mindset when you're working on Power BI will be thinking, a calculated column doesn't work. But you're working in Fabric where you can actually go and create your own calculated column within the data itself. Where that change your mindset from your traditional reporting that we have can change.
So we can use this table itself into the notebook to create the some of the
Yes,
additional column which we
yes,
require.
additional columns, correct. So you can now once you have the table here, okay, you can then once you have the table here, you can then go and create anything on top of it. You can use your notebooks to further create aggregated tables on top of this.
Then
Now I
in
can
this case
also
we need
Mhm,
to
mhm.
then in this
Go
case
on.
we need to means actually if you will transform these tables means for say
Hmm,
here
hmm,
we have 10 columns but we are
hmm,
additionally adding 2 columns again. So
hmm.
that transformation will not happen in this table only. We will have to keep it in the other layers or in the other
Other layer, correct, correct. So to do that, what we can do is, for example, I do a Dataflow Gen2 now. Okay. Now let's look at another case here. I create Dataflow Gen2. Okay. Now I can also create a table within this new. What I can do is, for example, I get data.
okay, you mean to say by Power Creator we can create a new column like
Yes. Yes. So
okay.
I can go and get my data. I can do Power Query. I can use Dataflows Gen2 and I can also go and get my data from here. And I can go and transform this as well. But again, but for transformations, easily you can go and create your data sources, and you can actually go and use the transformations there as well. You can create a new connection, or you can get data from here and import data, and then we make that changes technically. But instead of that, notebook would be helpful. So I can again use the Copilot here, get data from, I want to use one lake. So I can then go to my Lakehouse. What was that Lakehouse that I made? LH demo. So there are multiple ways. Now once you're into Fabric, you can then go and definitely use multiple ways to do that. Now I can bring in these three data sets. I can create this. Now once I'm into the transform editor, I can then go and transform the queries also. I can go and merge these tables together into one as well.
Means it's a
I come here.
dynamic way to do the same things. We
Correct.
can use any of the resources.
Exactly. So ideally, everybody's mindset is when you're in Fabric, you need to go and do, this, that, you have to create a table and you need to push things out. So this is always a challenge when you're looking at when you want to find out different ways of doing it. So even when we got that data in, right, from that other sales table, I can use Power Query and use first row as header, that will automatically change it with that space. That's another way, but I'm using Power Queries here. Now here I can go and add a column. If I want to then go and add a column in this, I can definitely come to this table, sales facts updated, and I can go and add a column in this table as well. I can go and add column that I want to. But when you are doing with the live semantic model, that's where you cannot do. Transformation is independent. Now what I'll try to do here is I'll just take this and transform this data. So what I will basically, I'm intending to do is I want to see if I can go ahead and, go ahead and basically join this data together. Now I can just create a function, not I don't want to create a function, but I want to see if I can combine these two tables together.
You have to
So
merge the table.
yes, so merging is possible. That's what I'm trying to see. Data type is fine, rename is fine, home में okay. Yeah, destination है यहाँ पर. There's an option here. This is choose columns. Where did that go? State columns, scroll to merge queries यहाँ पर है. So I can merge queries as new, and I can say customer and sales. Merge these two things together on the basis of we have customer number. See, I can then go and add another merge. I can go and add a product dimension because I should have a product as well in the merge. I did not expand the other one. The next thing is I have to go and source the not for fast copy. Okay. And then I can go and expand this table as well. Expanded other columns. We have got the sales table also in this. Now I just want to do another merge on top of it. And I can say product. Now I can on this product number to this product number. I can now bring in this product data also. And I'll expand this as well. Got a product number. Now यहाँ पर I've created a merge data flow and I don't have a destination. So I can add a destination. Now I can say I don't have a warehouse. I can create a warehouse, create a new connection. On-premises gateway, warehouse fabric connection as an done this. Okay. So I can go to next. Connection name is fine. And I can just create this table name. Warehouse के अंदर. I can just say this is my gold table, for example. I have to just select a container for this new table. Data staging warehouse. I do a new table and I do a replacer of it, whatever it is I wanted. I put everything as so here. I can also go and select my data type. Customer number is there, product number, unit price is decimal, and so on. I go to save settings and I do publish. My data flow will run here. I can go to monitoring. So Fabric also has a area for monitoring. It will show me whatever that we are running, what is being monitored. So every time, you don't have to look at only I want to do this. I want to create this particular data flow, or I don't know how to work with this. Every time I need to just look at Fabric. I just want to look at Fabric data like PySpark only to create everything. No, PySpark is easy. And PySpark is difficult when it comes down to coding. I myself generally a lot of times I don't prefer using PySpark because I have developers to do that job. But if there is any challenges required, then I get into PySpark. But if there are things that you can do quite easily from here as a developer, if you're working on Power BI, if you understand data flows, and if you have a ready tenant, it is you can work this thing out. The intent behind this. Does anybody else have any other questions? It will take a while for this to load. The data flow is running, it's merging. So you go back to the monitor.
Even we can consume these data flows which we have created here directly into the Power BI desktop, local Power BI desktop.
Correct. Correct. Once this is created, then you have an import methodology. Then you can import your data flows. Then you don't have to then see that then you're opening up a lot of options for further consumption because you are then having the single source of truth. So the whole intent of having Fabric is having single source of truth for creating or for working. So, just trying to see which warehouse it went to. Went into some other warehouse. Have to check for. So here it went to this warehouse. Yeah. So one of the mistakes that we did here was I can create a new warehouse item here. Just put my old warehouse. In this warehouse here. Okay. Fabric training. Here. The schema is there. Now what I can do is I can go back to this data flow that we created here. And from this for this merge, I can go and select the create new connection. No. Connect, we cannot create more than one. Okay. Okay. Next. Gold warehouse. I can connect to this gold warehouse. In this, if I create a schema, I can then, I can go and create this. I can select this, add a different warehouse here. I come to this, I do a replace fixed schema, save settings, and publish this again. Now my data flow is running. If I go to monitor, succeeded. Come to the warehouse here. Published. Okay. Republish. Wow. Now it is refreshing. It takes a while, but the problem with data flows and this takes some time. So Dataflow Gen2, we are doing the same thing with some time to refresh.
Disconnected. S35 is now connected.
While to get this done. And then one other thing is, by the time this Dataflow Gen2 runs, what we can also try to do is, I have a lakehouse, I have an endpoint. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to connect to Power BI to this lakehouse. So I can open up a Power BI desktop. I don't want to use direct query. I want to leverage semantic models. So let me just open up quickly and sign in first. But how's the flow going? Is the flow okay? Everybody is able to understand things? just sign out from this account and just put in log into my other account. Sharing my screen again. Just signed in here. Now, since I'm in Power BI, so let me just quickly check in the meantime. Bring my it succeeded. That's fine. So it's writing out in the warehouse. That's fine. So Power BI, what we can do is if I go to open up a new report, or I can go to my One Lake catalog, and from the One Lake catalog that I have, I can go and connect to my SQL endpoints also. I can filter here by SQL Analytics endpoint, and I can connect to my Lakehouse demo that I have here because we're using the this demo, which has my data in it. So I will take my authentication page. Now this is the connection that it's being made. Now how to look at the connection? If I go to my Lakehouse and I go to my Lakehouse properties. So here, one second. Space. And then settings. Here I have the SQL Analytics endpoint. So if you want to give this to developer, this is the SQL Analytics endpoint that is used to connect. You can use it in SQL to connection, connect and all those things. Now I can come back and here if I see I have these tables. Now once I bring these tables, I can do a import a direct query. Now once I'm into import, now I can go and do this and I can create my own custom columns and whatever I want to on top of this. Because I am importing data in. Now once I import data and I publish this report again, this will be, then you can use scheduled refresh to refresh. This will not be a direct lake connection. But what we are trying to do, what we try to do here in my other environment that we did the report here, this is a direct connection, direct lake connection. So if any data changes, my data will change. Will try to see how we can do that as well. I'll show you. So what we can do is for the time being, here I can create these tables and this is how I can see my data in this Power BI. So we'll come to this later. Abhi, what I'll do, I have this gold lakehouse. I'll come to the gold warehouse here. I refresh. POK under. Now I'll have my gold and here I have this final table that we created. So now from my bronze layer, I'm able to move a more curated data to gold and I can then create my report on top of this. Now what I can also do is just the way we worked on the data model here, the sales semantic model. Okay. What I can quickly try to do is let me see if I can use ChatGPT. Give me a minute. Just log in. Take the sales fact that I have. I just close this. try to take the sales fact updated. A very easy ways for you to practice. So I'll just take this records, put in ChatGPT. Save. Unique. And okay, is Excel file. Demo file only, that's fine, I can do that. The time this works, we go back to our data model here. We have this semantic model. If you open the data model and we have this, and now with this, I go to the editing mode and I create. So I'm going to use now this is more in terms of Power BI data agents, how we're going to use this. Now I have this data in here. Now we have the total price and quantity. So I'll just create a new measure. I'll just do a new measure quickly. Total sales is equal to work quantity is equal to total quantity and we have the product number, sales ID, and we do the total orders. It's equal to distinct count of let's use these three measures here. We created these three measures. Now I create a new report from this. I can either go and create a normal report like this, or what I can do is I close this section. Okay, I want to create new report like this. I'll come back to my sales model and the fabric training. I open the sales model here. Okay, and I can then go ahead and explore this data. So I can go and explore sales versus quantity. I can see total orders versus customers, for example. I can go and create a visual or anything like that. I can save these explorations. I can save this as a report if I want to. I can go and create a report on top of this. And I say this is my sales report. That's one way I can do this. I say don't save. I can also go and select all these three tables that I have. And I can explode and say auto create a blank report for me. So it will automatically leverage Copilot on top of this also to create a report because I've given it measures and sales. So it will basically go and create these measures for me based on total quantity by regions, total orders, total sales. So this is one way of, for you to quickly. So again, this is not a report that you have to give to the customer, but this is quickly that you can also look at with the measures that you have created, how it looks like. And then you can go and edit, and then you can go and change the report. So clear until this point?
Yeah, yeah.
Any questions that anybody has? Not, then I'll just put this report as sales report. And I click on save. Now, if we come back to this training, now we have a lot of things that we have not organized properly, right? We know that this is how we have kept it. We have the Dataflow Gen2, everything is working. We have a warehouse. I can go and create tasks, predefined tasks within Power BI, and I can tag my resources within this. Now, when you're working on warehouses, this is also very important. So if I'm getting data, now I can go and attach within get data. I can say my Dataflow Gen2 is there. My pipeline is used for get data. I am using get data here. I can create another item. I can say store data. I'm storing data into my gold warehouse and lakehouse. I select this. I'll say get data first. Then if you look at this, I'm creating tags. So if I just filter the tag here, I'm creating a tag here. And I'm saying I want to transform. Just for example, I'm saying I just have one more item where I'm transform this data, prepare data. I'm saying I want to use a notebook to prepare data. And I have a report and semantic model which I want to visualize. So for visualizing, let's zoom this out a little bit. I'm visualizing this semantic model and a sales report. So I can use a sales model to distribute also. I'm visualizing this, and I can say I want to distribute data via the semantic model. Now I can go and stitch all of this together. I can say get to prepare, prepare to store, store to value visualize, visualize and distribute. So in this way, tomorrow I want to only give access. I want to look at what is there in stored. I have to tag it in here, which I didn't tag. Everything was in the get data. Sorry, I can move this to store. Notebook. So I have store items. So it will, when I'm linking this, it will automatically say from dash to store what I'm trying to do. Then I'm visualizing one item and distribute one item. Semantic models. Here I have 5 items. Here I have 1 item, and here I have 2 items. So in this way, tomorrow I want to also look at how my data flows and everything is being set. This way I can tag. This is a very important topic. The reason behind this is uh, there is an assessment that Microsoft does, which wherein it is nothing but the architecture in Fabric, architected review in Fabric. So where there's a policy where you need to start tagging in. This is like the best practices that you can do. Okay. Now, once this is done, I have the report also. And now because I'm on Copilot, what I can try to do is I can now leverage Copilot here on top of this. So I'll also show you how Copilot works. So with this report, I can quickly, I can get a summary of this report, write a summary of this page. I can prepare a summary of from this page what I have. I am able to get all my key insights from here. Now I cannot directly go and pin this key insights to any of my reports. So what I can do is I can go to edit mode in the report. I create a new page, or what I can do is I delete this. I duplicate this page, for example. Okay. And I say summary. What I can do is I can take all these visuals and I can use a smart narrative visual here. So I'll just minimize this for now. And I can just create a smart narrative. I can do a Copilot and I can prepare a summary formatting. It has already created here and I can do update. So see, it created a summary. I can then close this. I can take this summary. I can also put it here. So I have the summary already here for this region, but I can also take this and remove all of this. And I can create a summary here as my home page. And I can go and create multiple summaries. And I can use this as a summary page. And then I can use so I can, if I want to use any filter, I can still go and filter the data. I'll refresh it and update the data for South. So you can create executive summaries automatically now using Copilot or smart narratives. So this is one way of doing it. And I can now, if I just go and save this, for example, and I go back to reading mode. And I can also go and get insights. If I want to get top insights or there's nothing in this, I can just select a visual and generate insights on this as well. So I can come here and I can explore this data from here, get insights from this data, and it will generate. But one of the key things that you need to really, we need to really understand is when you're doing Copilot. So for example, if I just want insight, I go back to Copilot. I want to say from this data that I have, I know the sales and regions. I can say create a pie chart of report distribution of total report of pie chart of total sales by region. And Power BI also has a flexibility here to create your visual as well. So this is very important. This is very helpful for the people. Why is this not working? Q&A. Okay, I need to turn on Q&A. Okay. Now I will just copy this. Okay, I have not done that. So now if it look for the report, it look for the region, and it will be able to create a visual for me as well. So you will have to explore a lot of options around this. So explore the answer. It will give me what the answer, like how the breakup is and so on. So this is also helpful for the business users. So when you're dealing with Microsoft Fabric, you can say, okay, I'm able to understand how Copilot works on this. What I can do with Copilot, I can either do it using, how Copilot has arrived to this. It gives me region total sales. It will also help you to further distribute your data with users. So I don't have to I can just have a report if my data model and everything is right. I can then users can still go ahead and, query the report in Power BI and look at it. So that's one way of doing it. The other thing that I wanted to talk today was more in terms of, since we have the semantic model, what I can now do is I can go to the Fabric training and I'll create an AI agent on top of this, which was the AI skill or data agent. I can come to new Fabric. I can go and do a data agent. I just say this is my sales agent. Create a sales agent. Now go and add data sources. Now what I'll do is I can add as up to five sources. Like for example, I want to say that I want to have just these three individual tables from the Lakehouse. So I can go to the LH demo here. I can add this source here. So it will try to understand you have this, and now we can select tables from this. I can also go and add my semantic model if I want to. I just want to say demo sales model or sales model here. Okay, and there I'm showing you different examples of how it works. So it works differently when you look at semantic models. It works differently when you look at lakehouses. And for the timing, I'll also add a gold warehouse. Now, before we do that, what I want to do is I want to give this data agent an instruction. So I'll say answer like a sales agent. I would say you are a sales agent. Answer mostly answer in provide the answers in tables. I can also do one thing that I can go back to my data here. I'll quickly demo Lakehouse and I'll say that, for example, total price. I have a measure, but in the Lakehouse I do not have. So I go back to the agent. So total price, unit price, and quantity. So I go back to the agent here. I'll say total sales, the total price, total price column, quantity is the sum of total price. Total price column, total quantity is the sum of quantity. Price, or I would say sales is the sum of total price. It is unit price is the sum of unit price. Say total customers is the distinct count of customers and total products. I would say products is a distinct count of product number. Distinct product number. Product number or product ID. What is that? You can quickly check it. Customer number, product number. So underscore number. And here is a product underscore number. Now I'm giving this an instruction. What now I can do is I can say that okay, I want to look at my these three tables, and I would say give me now this is another analysis that I want to do. Now give me top 10 customers by total sales by sales. And this is something that we have not done yet, right? In any of our reports. Now I can go and ask this query to the agent. It will try to see the instructions what we have given, and it will then try to respond back to us on its finding. So see, it has given me. So now one thing that you need to understand that here we have a semantic model that we have created, but in the lakehouse that you have, right? You do not have anything that is related to each other because relational model is not there. But still, because you have a customer number in the customer sales and you have a customer name here, it basically went and tried to link these three tables together to come up with the output. Now, this is very helpful if you want to use AI on top of your data. I can also see how it worked out is I come here. It says, okay, I've got this output. How I come to this output? By this query. I created a select query. This way, I can take this query, for example, I can go back to my lakehouse here And I'll go back to the SQL endpoint on this Lakehouse. And create a new SQL query. I can run this query. So see, it gives me the same output. So in this way, you can say that, what you're working as data agents into Copilot, this is able to come up with a query as well for you to write. Now, if I want to create a view, something of some views like that, this will be very helpful for me to create the views at the backend. So I want to say that, if I go back to the agent and I say, give me customer names against product names with it with its with its sales with its sales. So where we kind of really struggle in doing further analysis, this is where this kind of AI agents will help us out. So see, it has given me a query. So again, same customer name, product name, and the total price. And I want to say, copy this. So in the product table, I go back to my Lakehouse. In the product table, I have a product name. I want a category and unit as well. So I come back to the agent, this product name, category, and you, what was that, unit. So I query it again. We'll work on it. We'll try to link through the tables with each other and try to see if we can give us. Now it gives us this entire query. Now I can take this query. I can copy this query, come back to my endpoint here, here, like this. I'm able to get. I can basically then use this query. I can put it into notebook and create a SQL table out of it as well. I can do it further. So these are different ways you can leverage. So now this is on the data side. Now, if I'm looking at the data Power BI side of it now I unselect this. I want to use this semantic model. Now I want to create a similar table. Okay. But what I want to say is I want to give the top 10. So I'll take this same query, but I'm going to run this same query on the customer table. Now, if I run a query on this semantic model, come to the query here, it created a DAX query for me now. So when you want to work on Power BI, you can leverage a data agent for Power BI as well. Now, how do I look at this? I copy this. I come to my sales semantic model here. Report. Relationship is fine. And I go to view editing. This is fine. Okay, let me close the semantic model. And I for training sales semantic model. I do open data model. Now I go to editing mode. ingestion, 8 tables, and this is fine. Let that go. I can also edit this in desktop, so it will open. Acha, XML endpoint is not enabled. Okay. So that's fine here, but I'm not able to see. Semantic model. Write DAX queries. Sorry, I'll be in write DAX queries here, and then it'll open up the DAX query view, and then I can go and put the same query here. I'll take this out, and I can go and evaluate. I can do that. Like for example, I want to use the data agent back again from here. Agent. I want to say that I want to create a new total products. So just create a what does give me count of total products. So it will create this total product measure for us.
So it is related to query folding, no? This concept.
No, so for SQL, yes, but here, no. So here you can create. So you're not doing anything on Power Query. Query folding is completely a different topic.
Okay.
Query folding may the query that you're transforming in Power Query, that how it gets rolled out, that it rolls up in the SQL, that is there. Here you are actually going and running your query to understand how things are. Now what I can do is I can also go and define a measure here. I can just go and define a measure. Measure name. Okay, and then I have to do that. Okay. But I can create a measure from this and I can put it in the model. Now, one of the things that, so this is how you can basically go ahead and run your data agents as well. Now, one of the things that we did here, we created the sales report with this data that we have, and I wanted to use ChatGPT just to see it has created this synthetic data. Let me see what it contains. Let's see whether it contains the same data or not. Same structure mein. Customer number created the same way. Now what I will try to do is, because I'm using a direct lake here, so under the lakehouse that we have, semantic model, sales report I'll keep. I'll go to the workspaces, house demo, files, we have the sales fact updated. In this, I'll upload a new file. Upload this new file that I have. Upload. If I go back to this report here, total orders 2000, total sales, this is the one. And I go back to this and I load to which Excel is there. Yeah, I need to put it as CSV. Let me delete this. Come back to get data, upload files, create remove, get CSV, upload. Just load to tables, existing table, append records, select a table, sales fact updated, do a load. And I go back to this report. If I refresh this report now, it added more 1,000 orders to it from 2,000, 3,000. So in this way, so because this is blank, because there's no mapping of this here, because we did not do the other ones, like, the other regions and everything, mapping other dimensions, but it automatically loaded these tables in. So this is how direct query works in Power. Direct query mode, direct lake works in Power BI or in Fabric as well. So this is one of the very important things when you're dealing with data. So whether you want to create a semantic model, now here I'll have to refresh this report, publish everything, and create this. Even when I go back to my data flow now in here, if I go to my data flow and I run my data flow for that final warehouse that I have, that particular warehouse, we have a lot of blank data in this because I have not done the mapping. So I'll get a lot of blanks in the warehouse for this new record that I've created. So in this way, you can leverage Fabric, from start from your data to the end of where you can leverage the data through AI. You can also use this AI agents. You can leverage this AI agents back using REST APIs and then put it to Azure AI Foundry and use that AI agents there as well. That is also another thing how you can look at. So if I go to the settings, so one last thing, because that concludes what I wanted to show you guys today or train you guys today to give you understanding. One of the other things that is very important when you're looking at Fabric is endorsement. So for example, I use this account and I can go and endorse any of the content within the workspaces, and I can go and endorse this content, because once I endorse it to other people, then I can go and no, if you look at endorse items, there's no endorse items here. I can go to data governance. This is like Microsoft Fabric already has data governance within this. You can do that. But endorsement is also very key when you are going to work on reports, when you want to share reports share your reports, share your data sets with other people. Rather than duplicating anything, I can go and promote, I can endorse this item and I can share this with other users. I can just give them read access to the queries. They can just audit queries and so on if I'm looking at granting access to them. That's one way of I doing it. So this is how we can do that. Now the last thing is, like, for example, I'm creating one. I have this Fabric workspace here training. I create a deployment pipeline. I say deploy train. I say next. Now here I can create this 3 layers and I can assign a workspace, Fabric training. Here I don't have a workspace. I can go and create a new workspace. Fabric test. Assign this to this domain, not here in this. Put it here, for example, and I come back to my deployment pipeline. I'll select Fabric training. I select a Fabric test, and I can also select. I can create one more Fabric prod. And I can do a Fabric prod. Now I can select item again, Fabric training, Fabric test, and Fabric prod, and I can endorse what I want to publish. text. Right. Can then go and deploy from one stage to the other. If I just go and put this and do a deploy. So some elements will be copied, like Lakehouses, those are not supported yet in deployment pipelines. But you can do that. But you can also create a Git workspace to copy content over from one to other. You can also go look at deployment of data from one environment to other environment. Provided also if you are having two different tenants and if you want to publish data from one tenant to the other, you still deployment pipeline provided you access to that new tenant as well. So let it wait for copying, and this all looks fine. Yeah, copy. So it takes a while to move the thing. So now it is moved from dev to test. And I can then go and publish. If I want to have an app, I can go and publish. It'll compare and so on. So now if I go to my Fabric test, I'll see warehouse demo, everything is set up here. Everything is moved here. And then I can use variable parameters and everything to dynamically change the content that I bring in. So this concludes the session on Fabric. Would like to get more understanding from you guys. How was it? You guys have any feedback, anything that you want to cover more? And then I can explain more. We can have more sessions around it. ये सब लोग की सो गए. Unmute yourself and speak. That should be fine.
So it's very helpful to understand the Fabric, like how we can use that, and from starting to like from the data, from taking those data from on-prem and till making those reporting from here.
I did not explicitly take care of pipelines in this because in pipelines it is much more like you'll have to write codes. I didn't prepare the codes that was there, but I can send you a list of codes that you want. There's another element of where you want to do meta-driven orchestration. That is where that heavy piece comes into. I have to set up a proper data structure for that. So that I need to work upon. I'm already in the process of doing that. I thought I'll get that done today, but the certain challenges yesterday where I was working late. So I was not able to get that done. But meta orchestration, how you can automatically configure, new files, new folders, if that come in, automatically your pipeline executes. Those are the things that are also very important when it comes down to Fabric. This was more in terms of, for you guys to have a glimpse of how things flow from, start initial data that you have on your source system to a destination, what you can do with that.
Yep.
So that's very important for you guys to know and learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send. Sorry. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys a email, like a kind of a survey from Microsoft. I'll send it across to you guys. If you, it would be great that if you can fill that in, and I can, then submit it to Microsoft as well with, with the session that I've taken. So that would be helpful for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
All right. Any other questions that anyone has?
So, Prathamesh, for the feedback, it was very great session. Actually, we know that everyone that we
But
covered in the
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think it's not audible.
Hello?
Yeah, I am audible now.
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah. So overall, actually, means I know it's very good. Okay, I know that we can't cover all the means all the
Correct.
takeouts we can complete here, but overall we got a means complete episode of that. So looking forward to actually get more on the fabric part in the session too if you are covering that one. So that will be very
Yeah,
great
no,
for us.
absolutely. I'll be creating more sessions on that. Like, because what happens is now if I go directly into pipelines and that now there's a lot of, there's PySpark involved. So the problem there would be a lot of times, people have some of the people here, they really don't know how to work on data frames, and then that would be too much of a workload for them. It'll be too heavy. So
Yeah,
that's where we are trying to see, okay, we can, we are just looking at specific set of people who can do that like that.
yeah.
So
Completely
yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Hmm. So I'll try to see if I can send across that surveys as well. But also on the class, it's more like it would be it's very beneficial for me as well. Uh, if you guys can, go and what I'll do is let me see if I can open the post links, and I'm going to put that on the chat itself for you guys. See if you can access that on your phone. So if you can, I'm just going to put that on the chat here for everyone. So if you can fill that in, I put it on the chat. And I'm also going to send that to you by email. If you can fill that in, that would be helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, all right then, guys. Thank you so much for your time on a Saturday. I really appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Please let me know if there is any chat questions that you have, you know, and I'll try my best to help you with that.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Prathamesh.
you. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Prathamesh.
Yeah, thanks all.